Welcome to another episode of Dr. Brooke on the Block. It's time to grab a seat, buckle up, and take a ride with me through the wild, wild west of the Web3 universe, where we're going to learn all about coins and tokens, NFTs and contracts, digital real estate and the metaverse, and so much more. There's a lot to get through on the block, but I am here to pave the way and help you avoid those nasty pitfalls and rug pulls so you don't get hurt. I'm going to also introduce you to some interesting characters along the way. Are you ready? Your ride starts now. Hey, welcome to another episode of Dr. Brooke on the Block. You know who I am, Dr. Brooke, the friendly cryptopractor, but today I am joined by my co-pilot, David Woodbury, who is a veteran of the U.S. Coast Guard, serial entrepreneur, and speaker on Web3. He's also the CEO of Yakdao, which we're going to talk about today, which is a luxury camping brand off fractional ownership through NFT memberships. Yak is revolutionizing the way individuals can own and engage with real estate assets. Yak is developing a global luxury camping brand that fractionalizes ownership of recreational properties through NFT memberships. Welcome to the show, David. So glad you're here.
Hey, Dr. Brooke. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Like I always ask my co-pilots on the show, we want to hear your origin story and how you went from the Coast Guard to understanding the Web3 world and doing the work that you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah, the Coast Guard was quite some time ago, so there was a lot in between that and getting into Web3. But my background as a serial entrepreneur, I started my first company back in 2008. It was a wireless service provider. That company was acquired in 2012, and then built a marketplace called Camp Native. So it's a booking engine for campsites and RV parks all around the world. So that's sort of how I got into the outdoor space. In, I guess, 2017, I started investing in crypto. I'd known about Bitcoin since like 2014, but unfortunately didn't make my first investment until like most people got really excited about that bull run in 2017. So I started investing like later on that year and got crushed when it dropped. But that was how I kind of got my first chops in the space. Like most people, you've got to lose a little to learn a little. So
absolutely.
So yeah, from there, I continued to invest just DCA into the market, do my own research, and started following a few different, YouTube influencers or whatnot. And I guess what really got me going was in 2020 when COVID hit, and I started watching like governments just print fiat currency like crazy, and there was no controls on it.
Right.
And so I ended up getting really heavily involved as a business operator. There was 0 instances ever where the government was soliciting me to give me money, and that's what was happening like in the early stages, Q1, Q2, or whatever of 2020.
Yeah.
So I recognized that as a red flag, I guess, and sort of dove into crypto and better understanding like how money works and how these technology, as a technologist, somebody that's been in sort of Web 2, heavily in Web 2, I wanted to know like the underlying tech behind what we were building in the space. And so out of that was really Web 3. And so I guess I didn't really get the power of Web 3 until like I started seeing Axie Infinity. And so Axie, I was an investor just in the token, but I'm not a gamer, but what was happening is they were changing like the majority of users were in the Philippines and Vietnam, and those users were actually making more money playing Axie than they were like working their job. So it was sort of like normalizing income so that was like the first thing, like, as we start looking at like a more global business ecosystem, I think Web3 is having an influence. And that was like one of the first projects I noticed that was just utilizing Web3 in a unique, interesting way with, the gaming side of it. And then I think from there, like started watching NFTs. And at first, like I wasn't really compelled by NFT projects. It was mostly like the art community, and then music. And so I didn't get the real value until I started seeing a couple of projects like I think Links DAO is an example. They've fractionalized ownership of a golf course, and then Fries DAO, which is fractional ownership of a like a fast food franchise. And I started seeing like NFTs. It really was like individual digital ownership on the internet, and applying that to social platforms. And there's just so many things that we could scale from the Web3 standpoint. So anyways, that's my background, how I get in the space. Ended up becoming a speaker at the state level, talking to quite a few, I would say, small businesses across the state of South Dakota, where I was based at the time. And through that process, I thought, like, how do I apply this to my own business, and which is Camp Native? And that's where sort of Yakdao has come out of that.
I love it. That's such a beautiful story. We all of us who were in the space right now look back and go, dang, we should have gotten in at the time that someone had said something to us, but we probably wouldn't have had the understanding that we do now. And we got in at the time we did for a reason, but we can always go, dang it, or I could have been better off, but it is what it is. And you're moving forward and you're doing what you're doing and you're doing incredible things. Before we get into what Yakdao is, I really want you to first define the terminology decentralized autonomous organization. That's what the word DAO, or that's the acronym DAO is. But define that for my listeners first, and then we'll kind of go into Yak.
Yeah, so a decentralized autonomous organization is really an organization that's run and owned by its members. So what's really interesting about this structure is what we're doing is we're creating a way for startups to essentially launch like a publicly traded company out of the gates. So today, like the biggest companies in the world are owned by the shareholders, and certain shareholders have maybe more influence than others. Same situation with the DAO. Many DAOs are sort of top heavy with membership statuses, investors, whether that's like token holders, whether that's NFT memberships. So you have some influence and voting rights based on your status as a member within the organization. But the reality is every member has a say or a vote. So it's a democratic way to running an enterprise out of the gates versus like a centralized concept, which is launched essentially as one or two people or some co-founders, and you're more like trying to build this team so that like only a handful of people profit, where a DAO is like more of a movement where a whole group of people that believe in something get involved. And like I said, it's kind of, I would say the best analogy is just to think of like we're sort of creating publicly traded companies, but right out of the gates.
Great explanation. And thank you for sharing that. So tell the listeners what Yakdao is doing. Like what you guys are very outdoorsy. It is recreational type things, but more importantly, like people can own pieces of these recreational campsites, or they're owning the kind of like a timeshare. They're owning like, I don't know, like you explain Yakdao.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess we're trying to reinvent the timeshare model. I think that's a pretty historically that's been a pretty poor user experience for most people. So that is a component that we're focused on sort of reinventing with this model, where say owning a condo in Mexico, it's costly for most people, so they end up buying a week. And the issue with that is that upkeep and everything, it may not stay the same. Actually, like liquidity, like if you decide I don't want to go to that place anymore and then you want to sell it, that's really difficult with the old school timeshare model because it's tied to a specific date, and that not everybody's calendars align with that specific date every single year. So I think that's a sort of an old model. What we're doing with Yak is, so we're buying recreational use land, and this comes from our deep experience in the space, like managing. Basically, what Camp Native does is we manage bookings for 800 properties across the U.S., and so we see sort of like, we have tons of data on great locations and like well-run operations, and also on the other side of it. And so we were kind of able to take a lot of that data and start thinking about creating starting our own property. And we've focused on the luxury camping side of it because it's one of the most, it is like the most lucrative investment in real estate from an ROI standpoint right now. And
so the glamping type camping experience.
Yeah, so glamping stands for glamorous camping. And so
my type of camping.
Yeah. So yeah, basically what you have is like a unit that has, it's like a Marriott hotel on the interior, like super high-end plush interior. Our units they have like a Swedish stove. We're planning to put like, a hot tub or a pool in a community center, might have like a steam shower. But this is again with the DAO, all the members get to vote on this as the resources come in. And we're able to kind of like architect the plan around how that property is going to shape up. So basically, we founded the DAO back in April, and we did a pre-sale that sold out in June. We're currently in the process of working with a couple of funds right now to finalize so we're under contract for a property, 22 acres in Brevard, North Carolina. That's right by Asheville. And so we've got we're on the side of a mountain, and we have a private fishing hole and swimming pond like on the property. Just an amazing piece of land. And we're planning to close on that in the next 10 days. And then from there, we're going to develop about 30 units on that property. So the interesting thing about those units is each unit projects to do about $60,000 a year in annual revenues. And they cost about $35,000 to $50,000 to develop a single unit. So when I say like the ROI is pretty strong, it's very strong, like ongoing for these particular structures. So I think one of the interesting things that I saw in crypto is that we have this challenge of buying digital assets and then actually like translating that into real world income or like fiat currency that we can spend. And the challenge is like you have to sell your assets in order to live, right? I mean, that's just like if you're in the space, that's what people do, is you sell, and unfortunately, like for 9 times out of 10 in this industry, because it's so volatile, you end up, jeopardizing like significant upside when you're in a position that you sell. So with Yak, we've structured it where it's really like a hold and you can invest in these opportunities, and these opportunities then provide commissions to the NFT members. So a member can buy a dome outright as an NFT. A dome can also be split into 50 units, and those are just like shares to an extent. Versus they're not tied to like specific weeks or anything like that. So again, like reinventing and rethinking the timeshare model, because there's obviously more desirable weeks out of the year. And what we want to do is create sort of a more democratic approach to like ownership of these assets. So everybody shares in the upside or downside of that particular unit. And, if you own 1/50th or half of a dome, or if you own a dome outright, you're basically just enjoying the revenues that are produced by that. Our DAO, so Yak basically operates it, completely. So it's totally turnkey for members.
So you guys, okay, so I guess a follow-up question or just clarity for me too, and I think the listeners may benefit from this question, is say I own a dome outright. And then you said that dome can be almost fractionalized into 50 different, tokens per se. So you guys run that 50 tokens, like, so you give fractionally, like, oh, this person wants these this week and this person wants this week, but this is my dome that I own. Or can I manage my own dome and say, like, I want this person to have five of the 50. I want this person wants to buy 10 of the 50. Is that,
Yeah.
is
So
that option on the table?
Yeah. So we have a membership tier. So the membership tier is 3 tiers, and there's Mauna Kea, which is our top tier, and that's like for a serious real estate investor, like somebody that maybe wants to buy a dome outright. And then the next tier is Everest, which is like I want to buy some fractions of a dome, but I don't have, say, $50,000 to buy a dome outright. And then the tier after that is for campers. It's a discount on the stays. So so that's our different membership tiers. But to answer your question, when we develop a property, the value of a Mauna Kea is that they get first right of refusal. So a Mauna Kea could buy a dome outright and then turn around and say, well, I want to offset some of the cost of the dome by bringing on some fractional investors through the Everest community. And so Everest could then buy like 10 of their NFTs or whatever, and they maybe continue to hold 40 of those. Or let's say there was another property that we end up developing in the next 6 months or whatever, and a Mauna Kea is like, oh, I want to invest in that, but maybe I don't have the cash flow or the liquidity right now, so let me sell some fractions of one of my other domes so I can have like another dome at this other property that we're doing.
Okay. Cool.
So it's almost like creating like a somewhat of a retail syndicate. I'm sorry, real estate syndicate.
No, exactly. I knew exactly what you meant. But yes, okay, very, very cool. So, and then that explains like what it is and like how it works. And so people can, all of this is now available to be minted on your site. Like, how do people, if they're interested in this kind of stuff, get one of these DAOs?
So yeah, the membership so the membership Mauna Kea NFTs, the Everest NFTs, K2 NFTs, those can be purchased on pretty much any exchange or at YAK.camp. And from there, like our Discord is pretty much where like we're releasing units for. But again, like if you're a Mauna Kea, there's a separate like chat for those folks, and so they're basically given an opportunity to invest, and then after that we open it up, and we do have some fractional opportunities. And I think what's going to happen, like it's our first property, so we're filling it with lots of different people right now. But after we get property 1 up, I think it's going to be really advantageous to be a Mauna Kea because the results are going to be very strong, like from a revenue standpoint at this particular property. So anyways, that's the way you would get involved is like OpenSea. You can find Yak on OpenSea. You can find us on LooksRare, or just go directly to yak.camp and you can mint there from the site. But and then from there, like if you want to own any of the membership options, you can reach out to us directly. We only have like 3 domes available left at the Brevard property. Everything else has been already committed to, but we do have 3 units left. So, and then we're planning about a dozen resorts in the next few years. So,
oh my gosh, in all different parts of the United States or all different parts of the country?
Well, the world. Yeah. So
the world. Sorry. Yes. Globally.
Yeah. So we have a member with like 25 acres on the Indian Ocean in Kenya, and he's interested in doing something there. And we've got members in Australia and Asia and Europe, and so South America. So I think the objective is
Right.
to have like this opportunity, like digital nomad type opportunity available as well, which I think speaks really well to the crypto community. So
Absolutely. I see so many incredible benefits financially, not even, but then, I mean, that as well, but also having the ability to travel. Because as a member, even if you're at that lower tier, you can go to all of the different resorts and stay at these places, correct?
yes, you can. You get a discount.
Right,
So 10% off, like
right.
all of our stays or whatever. So
What it
yeah.
would be. Yeah,
Yep.
perfect. So let's transition a little bit. And I was actually talking to a real estate developer and investor here. I'm in San Diego on the show. So he's an episode that just got released today. Yours will be a few weeks out. But let's talk about NFTs and real estate and how that's kind of shifting the way that things are currently being done, you know, where it's a really long drawn out process. The sale happens, escrow, title, blah, blah, all the stuff, to where we're at or where we're moving into with like tokenized ownership through NFTs, and then just being able to do syndicates with non accredited investors. Like, what is your whole take? Like, what would you say NFTs in real estate? Like, let's talk about that more.
Yeah. So I guess I want to be careful because I don't work in the real estate industry and I don't derive my income from real estate historically. So I wouldn't say like I'm an expert on that, but what I have spent a lot of time on is looking at systems and industries that are sort of ripe for disruption. And I do particularly believe that real estate is, because anytime you have a pretty significant middleman markup in a transaction, there's value that can be derived. And that's been found out. Like if you were to ask somebody 20 years ago if like, you know, 90% of everything would be bought by Amazon.com, like that. Like, you know,
Right,
they wouldn't have believed it, right?
right.
Like nobody's going to replace like the experience of trying something out at a retail store or whatever it is. But we've figured out like e-commerce can replace literally like everything in retail. And so that's just an example of an industry that was significantly disrupted by technology, by Web 2.
Right.
And I think like I look at time, like I just bought a house, and the time to close, it wasn't too long. It was like 5 or 6 weeks, but there was nobody in the house, and the money was like, it was there to buy the house. And so there was no reason, like, if I wanted to buy that house, maybe like, why couldn't I have just bought it and be in it like 30 days or like a day later, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's how transactions work, but it doesn't work that way because they have to, line up the title company, and you have to line up like the financial, the real estate, or the mortgage companies, and the brokers, and the underwriters. And so what I think blockchain does is it just creates a lot more transparency, just in the way that the technology works. It's a long ways out. I don't think like a lot of these systems are going to be, reinvented overnight, but the fact that a realtor still gets like 6 or 7% of a transaction, that's a
Sale.
really significant piece of what is the majority of their net worth. If you think about that, it's the biggest transaction that most people do is buying or selling a house. So, I don't want to like minimize the work and the effort that those people put in, because I know they work hard to make that money. But a lot of that, I think we have a hard reality to face as humans, is that technology is more efficient at doing our jobs in many areas.
Yeah.
And there's certain things like a transaction that can be handled quickly and efficiently. It's tough to say that maybe 6 or 7% isn't found in a new technology in the future. And I think blockchain and NFTs play a big role in that, just because of the speed and transparency of how fast you can gain liquidity on it.
Right. Like you could have been in that house rather than waiting 5 to 6 weeks. You could have been in that house, like you said, the very next day. Like, here's the money. Here's,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and I was moving like 3 states, and I was having to live in Airbnbs. And, so there was a big cost to me. There was like a cost of like $4,000, $5,000 or something like that in the interim. So, there's a cost to all of that. And it's not just about convenience. It is about the money too.
Right. Absolutely. And you said that there was, you think that we're still quite a ways away from all of that. I do agree to some extent. I think we're moving a lot quicker than people recognize and realize. And, just with Bitcoin coming out in 2012-ish, right, to where we're at now, or 2000, 2009 is when the white paper came out. So 2010. Yep. So we're about 12 years with Bitcoin, right? Where people are like fake currency. And then now we have an entire technology where more companies, more projects, more people, Yakdao are building on blockchain technology, building out these new entire, part of a new entire ecosystem. So in terms of real estate and NFTs, I think we are a lot closer than we really think we are. But there is a ways away in terms of mass adoption or people kind of understanding it more and recognizing that this is going to be a part of their everyday life, and it's going to be the way that home sales or real estate transactions are done. It's going to be the way that we transact in business. It's the way that we're going to be, like you said, with the timeshares. It's going to disrupt a lot of different user case scenarios that we know of today. So
absolutely, I agree 100% with you. It's there's a lot to be disrupted in the space, that's for sure. I think there's no arguing that.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, I know, I think my service is getting a little choppy here. You look frozen to me in the other screen, but do I look frozen?
Nope, you don't.
Okay, you are a static image right now. I'm glad you're it's a good picture of you, so don't worry. But with that being said, is there anything that I didn't ask that you would like to highlight? I know you're doing some incredible work in the Web3 space. I want people to definitely check out YAK Camp, which I will put in the show notes, yak.camp, I believe you said the URL was for that. So I will put those in the show notes. I'll have people connect with you in all the ways that you want them to. But is there any other closing thoughts that you have?
No, I mean, I think the other thing, you can follow us on Twitter. It's just the Yakdao on Twitter. And I just appreciate being on the show and getting to chat with you about real estate and NFTs.
Absolutely. I love this stuff. And it's fun. It's fun to meet people like you. It's fun to engage and find out what people are doing in this space, because it is so vast and it's busting with so many different opportunities. There's so many things blossoming out of this. And so kudos for doing what you're doing, because it's exciting.
Well, thanks for having me, Dr. Brooke. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. For those of you listening, if you've listened to episodes, you know the drill. As we pull this train into the station, exit to your right, and we will see you on the next one.
You made it. Congratulations. That wasn't so bad, what? You made it. Congratulations. That wasn't so bad, was it? I hope you laughed and learned a little bit more about this Web3 universe and how simple and fun it can really be. Would you be so kind as to leave us a review and share it with your friends and family? It would mean so much to get this out to more people as we embark on the greatest transfer of wealth that has ever happened in human history. Can't wait to see you on the next one.